So I'm welcoming you all here to demo for you EditMentor, because EditMentor is, it's impossible to just imagine for yourself what it is, off the top of your head. It's not like a common thing. There's nothing else like it out in the world. So there's no way that you could be familiar with this without first experiencing it a little bit. So I'm going to share my screen and talk you through, a little bit about the idea of EditMentor, which is that as you guys are thinking about what you want to do for the fall semester, how are you going to teach interactively and online so that you're not staring at a bunch of, black screens and pictures of your students' faces. So if you look around on the internet, there's plenty of video tutorials like this, but other subjects, even chess, they're taught interactively. So we have like a little person here who's our guide, and you can see if we make a move, we got the answer right or wrong. We can get a hint if we need a hint, and we can finally ultimately get to the right answer. If you look around, other subjects are taught like that too. So this is computer coding by Codecademy, and we're learning in the same way. The student actually has to write some code here. This is code. And then the system is going to tell them if they got the answer right or wrong when they run the lesson. But the way that we teach video editing a lot of times is, YouTube tutorials, or we're watching through the screen. And this is not interactive. The students they're just listening. So if you know what it's like to be in like a lecture hall, this is what your students are experiencing. They're like, can't you just record this so I can do it later? Enter EditMentor. So this is a browser-based editing application. This is not Adobe Premiere. It's not Final Cut Pro. It's not like any particular thing. We actually built this entire piece of software from the ground up. So every line of code belongs to us. The interface is supposed to resemble a generic editing software. It's not Premiere. It just kind of looks like Premiere. It's not Final Cut Pro 7 or 10. It just kind of looks like those a little bit. And that's on purpose because we see EditMentor as a textbook and an on-ramp to using more professional editing tools eventually. So what do we actually teach in here? We teach the art of editing, and we teach the reasons why you want to make a J cut or an L cut instead of just literally the physical capability to do it. So for example, in this lesson, we're saying, let's start with the first set of clips using the rolling tool. Select the video edit point between the first two clicks. Click and drag the video edit to the right. So I've actually got my roll tool right here, and I'm going to click and drag. That's actually my ripple tool rather. So I'm going to click and drag to the right. And I know that there's a second set of, actually we have some more instructions. Click and drag to the right so that we see Ari's face for her last line, eating a burrito. Now, this is what I mean, why it's so important that this is actually an NLE. I'm going to play through. Eating a burrito. So good, I got it just about right. I've got the 2-up display. So this really, really mirrors what it would be like if you were working in Premiere. And then this is what makes EditMentor so unique. I'm going to press submit answers, and you can actually see, the student can see if they got it right or wrong. What's really cool is they can read about why they got it right or wrong, and they can click on clips to see that if I had trimmed it a little less, I would have actually got the answer partially correct. So for example, here, the answer would have said, almost, you need to trim just a little bit more so that we see Ari deliver her full line eating a burrito. And then of course, some students will go left instead of right. And here we just tell them, not quite right, you rolled in the wrong direction. Overall, this will add up to a score that the student will get. and you have a dashboard here where you can see the students' grades. So now we're no longer wondering how well our students did. This is our beta room, so you're not going to really see any grades. We have that kind of turned off. But you could see in here how your students performed in any of the lessons. I'm going to the beta lesson. And by the way, if you have questions, feel free to write them in the chat. I'm keeping an eye on the chat, so I know if you have any questions. Okay, now I know what's going to come up. The next thing people are going to say is, well, we can only use this during the pandemic. There's only a few more months left. I only need EditMentor for like 1 month, and then I don't need it again for next semester. But we actually envisioned EditMentor long before the pandemic happened as a teaching tool, because this is what many of our classrooms look like. This is a class that I taught in Hawaii over a summer, and we have 160 students in the class. These guys are taking a summer school program to learn about filmmaking for a competition. And you can see that the school has plenty of computers. Everybody has a computer if they want one. There's laptops to go around. But of course, with 160 students, we have to break them up into groups. And here we have one student who's editing. And this student has braved the waters, and they've learned that editing is their identity, that they feel proud and confident in their editing. And meanwhile, these students are just happy that they don't have to do it, because it's a tough and complicated task to edit something. So of course, that's, how do we, the teachers, know who understands what about video editing? And I'm suggesting to you guys to reimagine thinking about video editing, not as which student needs to learn what software, but to think of it as reading and writing. Which of these students needs to be video literate? Because that's really what we are teaching with EditMentor. To that end, I'm now going to jump into one of my favorite lessons on EditMentor and walk you guys through how this particular lesson works. We'll go from the beginning and the end, and I'm just going to describe some of keep looking over here because I can see your faces, but you should probably be looking over here. So I'm going to go through the assembly cut lesson, which is a new one that we built, and it's based on, and actually, why don't I point out also that we have a curriculum roadmap. So for those of you who would like to try to see what lessons we have coming up, you just press on this little smiley face down here, click the curriculum roadmap, and you can see what lessons are available and when they're available. And I'm just going to bring up the roadmap here. So you can see that the assembly cut edit, it's the eighth lesson that we suggest teaching. And I'll come back to this page if people have questions about it. Okay, let's go through a lesson. Now I'm going to read the lesson description a little bit. A film story is first told by the writer, and then the director tells the second version during production. But the third version of the film is built scene by scene and shot by shot in the editing room. So in this lesson, we're going to learn about what's the story, how to review our footage, and how to actually build that into a scene. And you'll see here, so I press start the lesson, start the challenges, and let's go to the first challenge. Okay, so you guys can all try this lesson. If you email me after the webinar, I will send you a login for you to try this on your own. So I'm not going to read every word. I'm not going to go through every single challenge exactly right, because that would take a little bit of time, quite a bit of time. So the first thing we're going to do here is, we're learning about these story points, that all stories have a main character. They take place in a particular story world, that each character has an objective, something that they're trying to achieve, and that obstacles get in the way of the main character achieving those goals. And so the first thing we're going to have the students do is just read the script. And when they click that button, they'll get a link that I didn't fix. they will get the script. And then they will answer these questions. Who is the protagonist? Michael is the protagonist. What's his goal? What's the thing he wants? And this is all information that we would get from the script. So his goal is to speak to Amita, who's our other character. So let's see. The protagonist, Michael, he's nervous around Amita. The story takes place in modern day and in London. And if I was confused, I could also get a hint. Review our essential elements of a story when reading the script. And I'll submit my answers. And I can see I got these right, but if I wanted to know what all of the answers were, I could read about them. So tons of information here. One thing that we notice is that students, even when they get the answers right, they will go back and review all of the wrong answers. It's also important to note that with EditMentor, there can be multiple correct answers, there can be multiple incorrect answers, and there can be partially correct answers. Because of course, in editing, there isn't always just an objectively true statement that is always going to be the case. You can cut a lesson in a lot of different ways. So let's move on to the next challenge, where now we are analyzing a scene. So in the last lesson, we were just reading the script, but now we're using the timeline. And I'm going to play this sequence for you guys, and you can enjoy it, and then I'll ask you the questions. Feel free to write questions in the chat if you have some. All right, so he kind of chickens out and runs away. So meet Michael, this is our main character, and this is Amita. This is Amita. And now what the student would do is answer these questions on the timeline. Scene objective, what's the point of this scene? What does the protagonist, Michael, what does he want? Does he want to finish his cup of coffee? Does he want to talk to Amita? Does he want to keep his job? We're taking a scene and working it backwards. What we were doing was, okay, question about the teacher interface. I will show you that in just a moment. So what we're working on here is, so what's the scene objective? What's the obstacle? That Michael himself gets too nervous. And finally, what's his reaction? He leaves the coffee shop very quickly. And I'll submit my answers and I can see the answers. So we had a question in the chat about what does the teacher see? And I actually happen to be logged in as a teacher right now. So you're seeing some new menu items here that you don't see when you log in as a beta tester. Let's start with the classrooms page. Classrooms are where you can organize a group of students in together and offer them a particular curriculum. So a classroom is a container of students that gets assigned a curriculum. And as you can see here, all of you guys who are beta testers with student logins, you're all a part of the beta classroom. And the lessons that you're able to see or not see are the beta test lessons. So those are chosen by me, the teacher, and let's view the courses that are in here. This is the course, the beta test lessons, and I'm going to view the lessons inside. So these are the lessons that are currently available for beta testing. But let's say there's one like production terms that we don't need anymore. We've already tested this. We don't need it to be part of the testing process anymore. I can remove it from the course by clicking this menu in the upper right corner and saying remove it from the course. If I want to change something, like we were just working inside of Assembly Cut, I can edit the lesson. All teachers have the ability to edit any of the lessons. You can change any of our text. You can change the scores. You can add a video of yourself. You can rearrange these lessons and put them in a different order. For example, I just swapped the last two challenges. You can create new challenges starting from scratch. In fact, why don't I start one real quick? I'm just going to say, this is about marking a shot. And the challenge type is going to be a marker. Now, I just want to point out, creating curriculum is an option for you. It's not a required thing. Sorry, one second. So it's up to you to decide if you want to make your own curriculum or you want to use ours. I'm just going to say, this is an example of how to make a challenge. And we're happy to walk you through any of this stuff. We have terrific support. You can talk to us, you can Zoom with us, you can call us. And a lot of times I will personally answer if we don't have someone else. Let's give this a hint and say, it's the first shot, and give us a score of 10 points. Say, sorry, that's not quite right, if the student answers somewhere outside of our section. Now, you could start with an empty timeline, or you could use timelines that we include for you. So you see how here we have a page called timelines. You could go to timelines and actually just import one, and there it is right now. You have all the footage, you have the timeline, you could add answers to it here. And I'm going to say that that answer is correct and worth 10 points, and there you go. Okay, now I'm not going to save this, so I'm going to leave the classroom just so I don't save that answer. There's another question in the chat. This is a terrific question. I have a concern about lag. I'm on a very fast internet connection, a very fast computer, yet I saw a lot of lag when I tried to when I tried the program out. Have you fixed that yet? If you have tried the program in the last couple of weeks, yes, we have fixed that. We lowered the playback resolution to 720. We changed and reduced a lot of the functions that have to happen in order to load a timeline or to scrub around the timeline. And just to show you guys, we're actually doing that because a lot of our students have slower internet connections at home, and we want to make sure that EditMentor works on a Chromebook with a crummy internet connection. That's always our goal. Our goal is not deliver the highest quality footage as fast as possible. Our goal is to make sure that the students can play back. Now, I'm just going to point out, I can move my playhead around the timeline very quickly, and when I let go, it updates fairly quickly. Could be maybe a little faster, but it is updating. And actually, the longer you leave the timeline alone, the faster it'll update. But my playback here is instant. All the cuts are smooth. So I don't know when the last time you tried this out was, but by now it should be working well. Do we have another question from the chat? Can everyone hear me? Someone said that they couldn't hear me. Hopefully you all can hear me. I would also recommend that you add a play around function in your asset tool. Yeah, Absolutely. So play around. The question here is about when you press the play button, that the playhead plays forward for a few seconds and then goes back and plays in a loop. There are a lot of tools that we want to add into EditMentor, and certainly there is functionality that we need and that can be improved. But really, our first focus is on creating a lot of lessons. And then we even have an idea to create sort of like a simulator here or like a theme. So you could press, for example, Media Composer theme or the Adobe Premiere theme or the Final Cut Pro theme, and the interface would take on the look of those other pieces of software. But it's also important to note that, you know, EditMentor is not likely, at least not anytime soon, to develop into a full-fledged NLE, because that's not really our purpose. Our purpose is really the lessons and teaching the creative art of video editing in an interactive way and making sure that these students here feel comfortable when it comes time to jumping into professional software. And lessons for advanced students. That's a great question. And I want to start first. I'm going to stop sharing my screen to answer that question because I love that question so much. I think that we have a false understanding in our mind of what an advanced lesson or an advanced student or an advanced understanding of something is. Oftentimes, it's masked by a student's understanding of software. For example, if you have a student who's out there making a lightsaber in After Effects, you might feel like that student is an advanced student. Remember, we're talking about storytelling primarily, and the tools and techniques that we're talking about when I judge, for example, student high school film competitions, national film competitions. I judge the Austin Film Festival, which is a professional film festival. I judge the Broadcast Educators Association Film Festival. And then I judge the festivals at Student Television Network, Florida, you know, lots and lots of film festivals. I am just telling you now, all of your students make the same mistakes, even the ones who win the competitions. The way that we're deciding our curriculum is, I watch hundreds of student films. We created a brainstorming spreadsheet with common student problems. We organize those into into a progression of how best to teach them. And then we're working through, you know, how the lesson should go. And I'm just telling you with 100% certainty that all of your students will benefit from this, no matter how advanced you feel like they are in their storytelling. In fact, I bet you that you yourself will start viewing the students' lessons, films, in a different light. A lot of that has to do with we all come from different backgrounds. I should point out that EditMentor is not only for film. Film just is the first course that we're making because that happens to be primarily my background and primarily the background of our curriculum development team. But what we've developed, the actual structure of the lessons, the way students interact with the answers, the way the answers are shown, this new process of teaching can be applied to other subjects. And we really view it as video literacy, as the understanding of the grammar of visual storytelling. So our focus is on teaching storytelling. Our focus is 100% on teaching storytelling. In fact, there really isn't, I mean, we do teach some basic tools. For example, you must know how to ripple and roll in order to create a moment. I mean, all editing software has a way to adjust a clip a little bit left or right, extend or shorten a moment. What we're not teaching is, you know, slow motion or adding 3D effects or adding text. Those things, you know, there is a place for learning software. And the way that I view it is, for too long, sort of for decades, the best video editing education was and is still created by video training software companies. So you may sign up for Adobe Classroom in a book, but at the end of that, you're going to know Adobe Premiere really well. You might not necessarily know what you're doing though when you have the footage in front of you to edit. And I actually see that a lot in the films that I watch students make. They'll have really cool transitions to scenes. They'll have interesting wipes, but I'm telling you right now that all of them dip to black between scenes because they don't know how to use, for example, an insert shot or a close-up as a scene transition. I can tell you that all of them feel like they need to start a scene with a wide shot if they know, what a wide shot even is. A lot of times what they're thinking about is, just how can I use the coolest tool or the coolest feature. We have some new guests that I'm welcoming to the presentation. So if you guys would like to ask questions, I'm happy to show them. I'm going to switch back to showing my screen. And again, all questions are welcome. Since we're at a half an hour, this is sort of prime time for a Q&A. And just by show of hands in the chat, who has already tried a lesson and who has not? If you have not, then I'll focus more on showing the lessons. But if you have already seen the lessons or a lesson, then I'll focus more on talking about what other things inside of EditMentor we can do. So let's see. So one hand is up for someone who has tried a lesson. Anyone else tried a lesson? You can raise your hand, or you can, so we have a lot of people who have not tried a lesson. Okay, Nick, you can put your hand down. Raise your hand if you have not tried a lesson. If you have not tried a lesson. All right. I can hear someone. Did someone want to ask a question? Okay. Okay. So I'm going to go back into our interface and show you all the great things that you'll have as a teacher. Let's see. Right. Okay. So we already know that we can see in the dashboard, for example, what the student's total score is, but we can actually get even more granular than that. I'm going to go to the beta lessons folder, and I can actually show you by pressing in the upper right corner the 3 dots and saying review scores. I can actually show you more granularly how each student did and how many challenges they completed and how they did in each particular challenge. So for example, we can see that this student got 1 answer wrong on the J-cut section, but did better on L-cuts, got everything right there, and lost some points while practicing split edits, and lost a lot of points while tightening a scene. So just think about the power that gives you as a teacher to be able to tell a student to go back and review this lesson and pay particular attention to these particular moments. And I can also tell, for example, that Misha, has only done 1 challenge and that I did not complete everything. And so therefore, I know that this student is, telling the truth or not telling the truth about whether or not they completed the lesson. And then of course, if I want to see the entire class's scores, I can go by classroom, so the beta students, for example, and I can see how they did in the beta lessons. So I can see which students are accomplishing what and how far along they are through the lesson. Although X just means they have not completed it. So a lot of beta users will start a lesson and then just kind of abandon it halfway through. So they just kind of want to get a feeling for how the app works. And then a lot of these beta users aren't even assigned. So like student 198 isn't even someone yet. Yeah. So yeah, this is how EditMentor works. If I go to classrooms, you can divide up your students into different classrooms. We've added a lot of help articles. everything that you can possibly think of, from inviting students to changing passwords to creating your own lessons. You can search for articles here. Creating lessons, for example. And we will have documentation of how to do this with videos, with moving GIFs. If I can find one in here. This is all still images, but we have tons of great information for you, so you won't be on your own. Do I have any more questions? Do I have a direction you guys want me to go into? Because I'm happy to show you more about our curriculum, which is where I'm planning on going next. But if people have specific questions, I'm happy to answer those as well. So viewing our curriculum, you can see that we start with a lesson that's about just how to use the interface, how to use the library, how to use the timeline, how to use EditMentor in general, how to view answers. And then we move into production terms, which are terms that the production would yell out. So calling action or clapping the slate. What's a slate? Then we move into shot coverage, all the different camera angles, what those camera angles mean. And then we talk about trimming. This is mostly to use the tool, how to extend or shorten a moment, how to create split edits. And these are kind of technical lessons. But we do, even with a lesson like roll, I think that if you were to look at, this is like an Adobe, how to use Adobe lesson. This is more what we're used to hearing about. This instructor is going to say something like, in order to make a split edit, take the roll tool, move 15 frames to the left. But the way that we explain it in our curriculum is we want to show more of Megan reacting to what Rachel is saying. In order to do that, we need to roll to extend more of Megan's video. So even for sort of a technical lesson, we're taking the approach of storytelling. Editing Problems and Solutions 1, which we're going to have ready for you by the beginning of February. This is one of the lessons that I was talking about where we're going to actually show student films. In fact, in some of our lessons, we have student films even now where we're showing the work that they did and having other students point out the good parts and the common mistakes that students make. And we're doing that because high school students primarily, they want to see each other on TV. That's why they signed up for your class. They think it's fun and interesting to see themselves on TV. So we want to make sure to get their voices in here as well. We're not just showing, only movies created by Steven Spielberg. In fact, a lot of times the movies that we show are movies that your students could be hired to edit, shortly after finishing school. In the assembly cut, we're talking about identifying information, what order the shots are in, how to create moments, and then of course in story 1, key moments, understanding the script, tracking a storyline. We have a great exercise in here where in one of our movies we have a security camera that is tracking our main character, and we ask the students the question, we ask them to follow that story throughout. And at the, towards the end of the movie, the security camera causes the main character to get in trouble from the higher ups, whoever they may be. There's kind of a Kafka-esque, the castle, whoever the bureaucracy is that's in charge of our main character, they write him a punishment letter. So we're teaching students to do that because one of the common mistakes that students make in their films is what we call like a setup without a payoff, where they'll introduce a story idea in the very beginning of the movie and then it never come back to it at the end. Rough Cut is a lesson that we'll have hopefully out to beta by Friday, which today is Thursday. So it'll be Friday, maybe Monday at the latest. And then Continuity 1, you guys already have this lesson, but when we created it, we only had some tools available to us, like some question types, but now we have more question types. We have trimming, for example, that we did not have before. So this lesson is already made. I just need to review it and it'll be published. And then we'll talk about the 180-degree rule. And, you know, I feel like the 180-degree rule is this like common, we all talk about it. It's just going to be the perfect lesson to teach, because the 180-degree rule is something we all tell our students about. You know, we tell them, like, we draw the picture on the board, the famous one with the dots and a little square for where the camera is, and have, you know, arrows like you must set this camera up on the left side, always on this side of the 180 or that side of the 180, and they never do it right. Every student film crosses the 180-degree line. I've seen it hundreds of times. So in EditMentor, we're going to ask the students to actually mark the shots that crossed the line, helping the students to understand and identify those moments. And that is a lesson. It was like, I talked to a teacher a while back about, I said, how do you teach what's a wide shot, what's a close-up? And this teacher told me, we take out a piece of paper and I have them draw a stick figure in a box. And that is certainly, you know, one way of doing it. But you want the lesson to be as close to the real world example as possible. You know, you want it to be fun and engaging, and you want the student to say, oh yeah, like I want to copy that. I saw that before in another movie and I'm going to mimic it. Students are really impressionable, and they're a lot more likely to copy what they see. It's actually the same thing with the interface. Like, why we make our interface generic, because students are a lot less intimidated when they approach the interface. Do people have more questions? We'll go for a few more minutes here. Just want to make sure I haven't missed anything yet. For those of you who have tried the beta lessons, I'd love your input. So you can mention something in the chat, or you can shoot me an email later. And if you haven't tried a lesson yet, just to repeat, you can email me and I'll send you a login at no cost. Okay, back to EditMentor and all the wonderful things we can do. So for those of you who are already, I actually see some people in here who are already EditMentor customers, and I want to show you something new we added. So I'm in the courses page, and you can see these are my courses. So these are the ones that I created, like, for example, example course or beta test lessons. You know, these are the ones that I created. We have a library where you can get the latest version of the course of any lesson from us. Now, previous to Christmas, before Christmas, you could only import the entire course. So a lot of you guys who are our current customers, you have many duplicates of the same lessons. Over Christmas, we added in View Lessons, you can now add a single lesson. So for example, if I were on the curriculum roadmap and I saw, oh, we updated features and tools with help articles, and that happened on the 28th. Now I look in the lessons folder here and I say, oh, features and tools, this got updated. I can now add just a single lesson and place it, for example, let's actually pick a different one. Let's do production terms. I'm going to add this to the example course. And you can see now we're in the example course. We were automatically redirected to the example course. And you can see my production terms lesson. Now it says copy 01 because I didn't delete the older version of this lesson, and we don't want two lessons at the same time with the same name. So I'm just going to edit the lesson. I'm going to change the name, say updated January 7th, 2021, and save the lesson. And here it is. So that's a cool feature that we can all be very proud of. I'm very proud of it. Okay, let's see. All right, you can also read the date on the bottom so you can see when it was last updated. So for example, we just copied in production terms. So the last time it was updated was January 7th. We'll swap those dates around to make it more the American system at some point soon. It's also important to know, for those who are asking about the back end, the teacher features, what else we have in here. We have the ability to invite more teachers, not just students, to the system. And the reason that you would want to invite more teachers is because you can, so if we had 2 teachers, for example, teacher 1 would only see the classrooms that they are invited to see. So each teacher would see like a blank canvas unless the teacher who created the classroom edits it and then assigns the tester teacher to it. So we already have the tester teacher assigned, but I'll just remove the tester teacher. And so now no one can see this classroom except me, Misha Tenenbaum. If I edit the classroom, I can add that teacher right back. And now both the tester teacher, and I can see the classroom. And again, all of this, just think about this, all of this terrific infrastructure, the ability to see student grades, the ability to change the lessons, having the lessons, which would you rather do as a student? Would you rather do that? Would you rather watch a video like this? The other thing that happens when you're watching a video like this is you get this false impression that you learned something. Sometimes you do learn something, but mostly, in my view, it's about button pushing. There really is no way to learn an artistic trait without actually doing the thing. That's what makes EditMentor so powerful. So for example, if I were to ask you to watch 10 hours of somebody playing the guitar and then handed you a guitar, you probably could not do it. But for some reason, we feel like with editing, like if we have someone watch this tutorial, then they'll be able to do it. And you really can't. You really need to put your hands on it to be active. Okay, it's been 45 minutes. And I wanted to see, I think, some printed material about your organizational views. Yeah, let's see this question. I missed this question in the chat. I think some printed material about what your organization views as good storytelling techniques would be helpful for training. I want to add to that and say that I actually think that printed materials would be good for our lessons anyway. And at some point, we will make worksheets that you can print out that go along with our lessons. But right now, especially during the pandemic, when you're not going to, you're not going to email everyone a printout, but you may want to ask students to, for example, write paragraphs in their own words about their experience. And I do feel like that's valuable, so we will do that. The other thing is, EditMentor is a great place to sort of store your curriculum and check your students, before and after they enter your class. When I was a student, I was really confident, to my detriment, about my understanding of video editing. I thought I was exceptionally good at it because I could capture footage and turn it into something. But the truth is that a lot of your best students could be a little overinflated about their knowledge, and a lot of your more shy students are just lack confidence, but actually are more skilled than they think. And we as a teaching body, all of us together, have a hard time knowing where all of our students struggle, and knowing where, is John, is he just self-conscious and quiet, but actually very capable and knowledgeable? Or is, Jane very confident and, maybe doesn't know quite as much as she thinks she does. Or maybe she does, we don't know. It's the same thing with like, what's an advanced lesson or what's a beginner lesson? We don't know. The way that you know is you collect data on the answers that the students give you, and then you'll be able to say, oh, you know what? Actually, I need to speed up that part, or actually, I need to slow down that part because they're not getting it. Because right now, the only way that we can tell is, and I'm sure all of you teachers do that. I certainly did this when I was in the classroom. You look at every single student in the eyes and you sort of have that moment where you say like, do you know? Okay, you got it. Do you know? Okay, you got it. But that feeling isn't enough. It really isn't. You really need to know. And then during the pandemic, especially with distance learning, when you're looking at black screens or you're looking at still images of people's faces, you don't even have the eye contact to give you any feedback. Plus with EditMentor, you could assign your students to do the work during class, and then maybe they do it, maybe they don't, but they can sign in at any time and complete the lesson. They could start working on the lesson after school in the media lab, go home, log in on their MacBook Pro or their Chromebook or their parents' Windows 95 computer. And as long as they can run Chrome, they can continue and complete the lessons in EditMentor, and it's updated everywhere. We don't work on mobile devices yet, but if that becomes a big request, we will prioritize that higher. Right now, everything works on Chrome, and that's kind of where we're basing our development. Okay, let me see. Are there any help articles, or do they cover any filmmaking concepts too? Good question. Yes, our help articles, which are found at the bottom of every lesson. So I'm going to go to a lesson. Let's go to a creative lesson. And let's see what we've got. I'm going to pick like trimming and play the lesson. At the bottom of every lesson, you can see the help articles that go along that help the students out in case they want to know how something works. And you can see even our help lessons are really interactive and really helpful. So everything is geared towards making sure that the student knows what's going on. All right, everyone, I'm going to say to wrap up, I'm going to just end by saying that it took a long time to conceptualize, to build EditMentor, but on every step of the journey, from before a single line of code was written, we have had input from teachers just like you. We have tested with students, just like the students that are sitting in your classroom. And I can say with supreme confidence that your students will enjoy this. They're going to go home at the end of the day having had fun in class and having learned something. And I know that because I have personally witnessed it happen, and I have sat with students to go through it. And not just because they're trying to make me happy. They don't know I'm there sometimes. Sometimes we're just kind of eavesdropping. Sometimes they have nothing to do with, they're just kind of random beta testers out in the world. And then sometimes we sit in the classroom and we ask very specific and pointed questions to the students. So I'm just telling you now, this is something I'm very proud of that took a lot of real world understanding of the classroom to build. And it is built for you. It is built for teachers first and foremost. You'll see a lot of other companies online saying that, who needs film school, who needs to learn in a classroom, who needs teachers at all? We can just have one sort of universal curriculum on Udemy or something, and that will replace everyone. But of course, we know that that's not true. Teachers are our guides. They help find our weaknesses. They help point us in the right direction and make subtle adjustments along our path. And we view EditMentor as a wonderful curriculum for you to follow, but also that you have flexibility to adjust and to make your own. And I feel strongly about that. Okay, so with that, unless there are any final questions, I would like to say thank you to everyone for joining us. And this video will be available if you want to rewatch. And you can always email me if you have questions. It's just misha@editmentor.com. Thanks a lot and have a good day.